Hello and welcome to this episode of the Worship Band Builder podcast, where we are working with you to lay the foundation for skillful worship. I'm Eric Roberts, and I'm joined by my co-host Emily Roberts.
Hello.
And we are on, if you're watching this on YouTube today, we are on a totally new setup. Like, we're looking straight at you, at the camera, instead of looking straight at each other. So go on YouTube, check out this new angle. Do you like this angle? I mean, I don't know. Do you like this angle?
Time will tell.
Time will tell. I don't know. We keep changing it up because, episode, 16, I think, is where we're at. And we just like to mess around. I just like to make stuff difficult.
Mostly.
But today we're going to do 10 tips for worship leaders. Okay, so I found this on Worship Leader Collective, and this is posted by, I guess, now I don't even know his name. Oh, Joel. I'm going to have to shout out joelbrown.co.uk because he posted this little meme and 10 tips. And so I read them months ago. I haven't read them lately. And
okay.
Emily has never read them.
Have never read them.
And I told her, don't you dare read the show notes.
I have not seen these yet.
No. So let's read these. I'm going to read these to her. Then we're going to talk about them. And we're going to see what we think about 10 tips for worship leaders. Would this really help? I mean, it got a lot of likes.
Okay.
It was a very pretty, thing. I don't know, whatever you call that.
It was a pretty thing.
It was a pretty thing. Yeah.
Good.
So let's see. Number one, let's just get into this because this is going to be a crazy week for us and we got a lot of cool stuff going. And so let's just get through these 10 tips. Number one, make sure you have a development plan that addresses your skills, character, and leadership potential. You don't become a well-rounded worship leader by accident. Be intentional about growth.
Okay. Can you read me that first part one more time? Maybe a little slower.
That kind of confused me. This guy he's a super smart guy. We're like, we can't even figure out number one. Okay, number one, make sure you have a development plan that addresses your skills, character, and leadership potential.
Okay, so that sounds like personal development to me.
Yeah, look, like skills, character, leadership, and a plan, maybe what you're going to do. Look at yourself and go, I'm going to make a plan to develop myself. That's probably it.
I think that is actually an excellent tip because I think that is probably the biggest thing that gets overlooked. We're busy trying to build the band and make the stage look perfect and maybe coordinate our songs with the service theme or whatever it is that is occupying our thoughts. But are we, as the worship leader, taking responsibility for our personal development? Are we becoming better on our instruments, better vocalists? Are we, most importantly, maintaining our spiritual well-being so that we can represent the Lord when we're on the stage? Yeah. I'm in full support of tip number one.
Well, tip number one, make a development plan. That's pretty proactive. I mean, a lot of people don't plan, and especially
most of us don't plan anything.
Right, especially plan an entire plan that addresses your skills, character, and leadership. That's pretty epic.
That is specific.
Yeah, number one is epic. And you don't become a well-rounded worship leader by accident, so be intentional about growth. And that is probably what I've been saying all along since we launched Worship Band Builder was continual and intentional training. And that's kind of what this is.
But it's continual intentional training for yourself.
For you. Yeah, because if you're a worship leader and you've got flaws, you can see your flaws in your whole team just spreading out and wreaking havoc on your team. And really, as a worship leader, for me, it's always been about trying to overcome my own personal obstacles because I can't really lead if I can't get there on time. I can't really lead if I don't plan ahead. I can't lead if I don't know the parts when I get there. So as a leader, I was always struggling with my own stuff, get my own stuff right. So
makes sense.
This is key. Number one, way to go, Joel Brown. Number one, we love it. Let's go to number two. Number two, invest time, money, and training in your gifts and skills. Raw talent makes for a good one-hit wonder, but it isn't enough for sustainable ministry. Yeah, you're going to have to pay.
Okay.
I like that one.
Well, that kind of ties into number one, I think.
Yeah, and I think you hear a lot of coaches, and I don't harp on this, but a lot of the coaches I listen to, financial coaches and some of the people who I follow, they're always talking about, you got to spend money, you got to invest. And I always kind of think, well, of course, because they're selling stuff. But it's true. Anything that I've done, I've usually spent money, and I'm good with that. I spend money on myself. I went to college. My parents spent money.
No arguments from this side of the
Yes,
table.
she's not. She's like, yep, he does spend the money. But when you see something like recently, I was going to get a skateboarding course for Augie.
Yes.
Yes, a skateboarding course.
Okay.
It's really, but it's training. Like he's trying to learn. So I want to get him this course that goes, this is what the guy's saying. Invest time and money in training for your skills. Because
Maybe not on a skateboarding course.
Well, no, I think you should. You should you should invest in skateboarding courses.
You could add that in, but that's not what our what's his name? Joel. That's not. I don't think that's where Joel was going.
The heart of the matter is this: invest the money in your training. So, hey, if you want to learn to skateboard, why just kick around out there for years trying to do it when this guy, Aaron Keys, he's like a pro skater. He made all these little things. So there it is.
There you go.
So,
well, now I will say, okay, that was sort of a blanket statement. Don't be afraid to spend money. So maybe it's a worship conference. As a vocalist, I would say don't be afraid to go get a vocal coach. Even if you are a trained vocalist, I find that I don't know what I sound like all the time. It's good to have a sounding board, somebody that can remind you or kind of show you where you're sliding into some bad habits maybe without noticing. So, that if I was leading worship every week, I would give consideration to getting a vocal coach. Maybe the same could be said for your instrument too, yes?
Yeah, I think the key of this number 2 is don't be afraid to spend money on yourself. Don't be afraid to... No,
Unless you don't have it. Don't spend money you don't have.
Invest money. Invest money in your gift. Save money and buy products that you think are going to make you better.
And I was just about to say that this is not like, hey, yay, let's spend money on a bunch of expensive equipment because they said invest in myself.
But I think you should buy another guitar. All right, we're gonna move on. Number 3, because the point is spend money. Okay, that's what I got from number 2.
Yes, I'm sure that is exactly
buy
what
a new
you got
guitar.
out of that.
Number 2. This is hilarious. Number 3. Find and commit. I need to read that right. Find and commit to a mentor who has your permission to evaluate your progress and motivation, and whether that be your worship pastor, another experienced worship leader. So basically, find a mentor. That's number 3.
Find a mentor.
Yeah, I agree. This guy's dead on. I mean, somebody who can speak to you and say, hey, you need to get straight, man. Get it straight. Get your life straight. Get off. I don't know. Mentors have changed my life. So yes, find a mentor. Or I was lucky as a young teenager that a mentor found me and he said, hey, I see your talent. I want to mentor you. I said, yeah, let's do it. And that led me onto a journey, a lifelong thing. So we still talk. My mentor and my mentors, I had several. But yeah, you have to find a mentor. Don't do this alone. Whether it's these worship leader cohorts where they all get together in these groups. Those are fine. You have to pay for them. And those are good because it might be hard to find somebody that's up level your skill. Like I like to look up, like find somebody who's already doing it better than me or doing it bigger and go, hey, how are you doing it? When I was a young teenager, I was hanging out with a bunch of like 30 and 40-year-old guys. And because I was like, well, they're successful. They have businesses. They're doing it. I'm going to see what they're doing. I wasn't hanging around with a bunch of 20-year-old guys. I was hanging around with 40-year-old guys. So that's another thing about mentors. Look up and find somebody that's there.
Yes, and it would be good if that person was also a musician, but that is not a deal breaker. If it's somebody that can be a spiritual mentor for you, take it.
Yeah, I think of it, I had a pastor as a mentor, then I had one of the worship leaders as a mentor, and then I had some older guys that were much older as mentors, and then I would spend a lot of time just sitting around talking to my grandpa, who was a pastor, and we had different viewpoints, and I would just pick his brain. So that's good. Number 4, if you need help finding a mentor, just send us a note, send us an email. We do coaching. All of these podcasts and webinars don't replace a mentor, but they're a good place to start. And then if you need to find somebody personally, you can just send me an email. Number 4, learn to worship in the absence of music to ensure music doesn't become the object of your worship. That's harder to do than it sounds for most of us due to our modern dependence on music for worship. Learn to worship in the absence of music. Yeah, I mean, I get that. Music is just one thing for me. I mean, music, I've always kind of said that music was my language to talk to God. But then again, the last 10 years, I haven't done as much, worship leading on stage. And you could just be walking around and talking to God. That could be worship. What do you think? Well,
Certainly worship is not just singing and playing music. There's much more to it more to it than that is what I'm trying to say. But what that is specifically for you, maybe it's a gratitude journal, maybe it's time in the Bible, or just prayer time, could be devotional, could be even a small group that's studying God's Word. I'm not sure if that's exactly what he means, but those things are all legitimate ways to build your relationship with the Lord.
Yeah, and let's take it from the other side, because I think I get it if he says, learn to worship in the absence of music to ensure that music doesn't become the object of your worship. So I think what I did in the past, probably when I was really obsessing over like the production and all the, is I became really obsessed with that kind of stuff in my band. So if you take away all the music, would I still worship if I just sat with an acoustic? So like the production and the whole thing doesn't become like the worship. So maybe just strip it down. Maybe you're just going to say, okay, today I'm just going to worship with an acoustic. I would do that about every quarter, and the pastor would get all kind of weird about it because he would think I was like taking a week off or slacking or something maybe. But I would let all the band members take a week off and just do a week where it was like an acoustic. And you remember that.
Yes, I do.
And I liked those weeks, and the congregation liked them. And sometimes it was like, oh, well, it wasn't like the big thing. Well, that's because even as a church, I think we get used to worship being a certain thing, a certain production value. So I think that's good. Just try not to make that, even though your whole job as a worship leader is to make the production, try not to make the production the worship. All right. We're halfway through. Learn number 5 is learn and try out new songs as guided by your context. Sometimes our reluctance to learn new songs is laziness masked by a preference for tradition.
That is probably more... I'm sorry, I'm going to say this again. That was probably more applicable years ago. I feel like now worship leaders have kind of moved into this, we got to have the latest and greatest all the time. We've almost gone the other direction to where we're not keeping songs around for even more than a year or two.
Yeah, I think it's guided by, so learn new songs is guided by your context. Like if I was in a more gospel church and they were playing a lot more gospel songs, then instead of more of a modern rock, if it was like a modern gospel, then it would stretch me as a musician. So maybe, and I think he's going to talk about that, but learn to try out new songs. I think learning new songs is laziness, maybe masked by preference or tradition, but also I think preference and tradition play a large role in our congregation. So I think maybe if you're a worship leader and I've been in this situation, I usually lead songs that I like and songs that that fit me. And I know that there have been times where there have been congregation members that maybe liked a different style that I wasn't versed in. So I was like, well, I'm just going to keep doing this. So I think there's a balance there. I think you have to be varied, but not, you have to stay in your wheelhouse too. I mean, if your wheelhouse is kind of a pop rock worship, then it's hard to do like a gospel song. Or like one time we tried a country song at our band, and I really wanted it was a Amy Grant song, and it
Yes,
had this
I
really
remember
cool
that.
like acoustic thing, and the band just flopped it out. And I finally at the end of rehearsal, I'm like, we're not doing that song, and I was
Yeah.
disappointed.
Well, it was a pretty complicated song. And I don't know that you should be trying to jump into other genres. I'm not sure that's where he's going with this.
Yeah, I'm not sure either. But I guess maybe just don't be reluctant to, don't be lazy is what I got out of that. And just because you prefer one thing or have a tradition, don't be lazy. Maybe try some new songs. Go get some of the newest worship songs and try a few. Maybe that's what he's saying. Don't stick with the same old songs because they're easy because everybody knows them.
There's a certain amount of you need songs that everybody knows because that's what they're comfortable singing. They don't have to focus on learning the song. They can actually worship to the song. So I don't think this is saying just get rid of all the stuff that you're comfortable playing or that has been used more than once or however many times. But I do think that there can come a place where you're in a rut. And if you're in a rut, you probably know it. You probably are going, yeah, I wonder if they're going to be okay with this song one more time.
Right.
If that's where you are, then yeah, that's probably something that needs to be addressed.
Yeah. All right, number 6. Number 6, learn your hymns too and try to find ways to make them fresh and musically accessible.
Oh, well, that is so cool because
I agree with that.
we are getting ready to publish a hymns songbook. And
Yeah.
the key to the hymns songbook that we're doing is that we're making them playable for guitar players and anybody who just doesn't feel comfortable changing chords every 2 or 3 beats. So
Yeah, I love the hymns. I've never had a problem with this, but some people do. Some of these young worship leaders, and now send me notes, or old worship leaders. Some of you guys just don't like hymns, and I've met people. I'm so scared to make any generalization statement in our current culture right now. But some worship leaders just have told me I don't like hymns. I'm not doing them, and I'm like, oh wow, I grew up not in church, but my grandfather and grandmother. I don't know. And then my classical training, I just like hymns.
oh, I love hymns.
So I don't get that idea. So if that's you and you're like, no, I just don't like hymns, they're dumb. Send me a note. Tell me why. Send me put some comments down in the thing. I want to know why you don't like them. And if you're there going, well, there's so many chords, and I get it because if you don't simplify them, then they don't sound good. And that's what that songbook's going to be. Very simple 4-chord hymns. You take out all of the passing chords, and it makes it more guitar driven. So check out the YouTube videos too. We've done a lot of those on the channel. And then they're like, oh, that's a cool song. That's a cool thing. But hymns are in the old school version, a hymn is very annoying, really, when you hear it just in an old style to a modern band. It's like that they can't really translate that. Guitar players can't, 4/4 rock drummers can't. It's like weird, and maybe that's why people are against them. So I would say, like he says, try to make them musically accessible. Try to make them easier. Try to make them a new version. And I think the church has done pretty good with that in the last decade.
Oh, yes. Ever since Chris Tomlin did the Amazing Grace, My Chains Are Gone, there have been several hymns that have gotten a fresh face, and they have added a chorus, potentially made them more contemporary.
Yeah, made him more better. Thank you, Chris Tomlin, for making that song more better. All right, so that's number 6. And I think, I'm enjoying this conversation, but I think we should save 7, 8, 9, and 10 for the next episode. So this will go into part 2 episode.
I'm with you. I don't think we're going to squeeze that into this episode. So
Yeah, I feel like it's getting kind of the point where the episode is going to end, and we've got kind of a lot of good stuff. So we'll make sure you check out the next episode for part 2 of 10 tips for worship leaders. We're taking this off of the Worship Leader Collective post that I found by joelbrown.co.uk. And actually, I'll tell you, Joel, I think he's like a medical doctor.
really? Really?
Yeah, so we'll talk about that in the next episode. Also, if you want to, make sure you go to worshipbandbuilder.com, check out all the podcasts, all the past webinars. We're doing webinars now that kind of go along with some of our podcasts, which gives me a chance to doodle on the screen and do all the stuff that I like to do to make it a little more in depth. So if you like a topic, check out worshipbandbuilder.com and then go to webinars. And we will see you next time. God bless.